Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here, Arkansas, to your state to address this issue. I have to say thank you to Melissa, Emily, and Daniel. I don't know how you can stand here and look at two people from your state and carry on conversations and not pay attention when people say how much pain they're in and how much they suffer. I really came today here because when I found out that 140,000 Arkansans had signed an initiative to ensure that this was a question that the people and citizens of the state had an opportunity to address. I thought if that many people wanted to put their name out there to say they supported it, then I needed to be here to help to support this. I have been open and a supporter of medical cannabis, not only here in the United States, but worldwide, and open on this for the last 14 years. I have been a medical cannabis user daily for about the last 11 years. I started off after having been diagnosed with MS, doing and pursuing every option that my doctors threw at me. And I should tell you that, unfortunately, the way our society is people with greater means have greater access. And so in my initial evaluation and the diagnosis of MS, I was seen by some of the world's top doctors, not the nation's, the world's. My primary doctor for 6 years was 3 years ago signatory to the Nobel Peace Prize for neurology. His name was Dr. Thomas Olson. I've seen Dr. Weiner from Harvard, Dr. Calabrese from Johns Hopkins, Dr. Olick from USC, Dr. Hauser from UC San Francisco. I've seen doctors throughout the world who've tried their best to help me mitigate my pain and stop what's happening. I have not only multiple sclerosis, but lateral sclerosis. I have scars in my spinal cord and in my brain. Unfortunately, it causes ridiculous neuropathic pain in my lower extremities. And I'm going to tell you that I normally have that pretty well kept and under control. I work on a lot of different modalities for trying to treat my illness. I'm taking 2 shots a day. I take over 50 pills a day. I'm involved in 2 double-blind studies, research studies, one at the University of Wisconsin, and another one that I did for surgery to see if I could mitigate my pain. It's not about me just wanting to utilize cannabis. I did this until I couldn't do it anymore. Daniel isn't telling you something that happens just to him. This is what happens to anyone who is long-term users of heroin. And I'm sorry, I use the term heroin. Why? Because doctors have them on Oxycontin. And Oxycontin is 1 molecule off heroin. And it's the reason why we have been in war in Afghanistan, because what you don't understand is you haven't even heard a word about the poppy seeds that makes the Oxycontin that we have to bring in the United States that no one complains about, because they're aware of the fact that his doctor has degrees from here to eternity that makes him qualified to put poison in his body. You say nothing. Now when the same doctor says that his his intelligence, his study proves that cannabis could work for his patient, and then he wants to prescribe it, now you want to get in the middle of the conversation. It's very interesting. I've watched, just like Emily said, I saw this ad that an organization here has put together to counter this, and I'm going to tell you that offensive is really an understatement. It's the most egregiously racist, false statement you've ever seen in your life. They got people sitting in a picture holding guns, talking about medical marijuana, and of course they happen to be of different colors to make sure that you are irritated and angered as you can be. I'm sorry I have to point this out, but that's your opposition. Why are they opposing? They don't even know why. They don't even, number one, even understand why marijuana was made illegal to begin with. No one standing in this group probably even understands that either. Marijuana was made illegal in the United States of America in 1939, ratified in 1942 by something called the Marijuana Tax Act. Had nothing to do with medication. It only had to do with the fact that states could not figure out how to divvy up the revenue. So it was banned. Then for 40 years, one person, his name is Anslinger, who then his title wasn't officially given to him, but he ended up being what would be considered the first Attorney General. He made it his life's effort to ban marijuana worldwide and got the rest of the world to ratify a treaty in 1962. 1 year later, he was fired by President Kennedy because he forced this issue, and President Kennedy himself was utilizing marijuana in the White House for his own pain. Now, you might say, Montel, you're talking 1962. Let's start talking some truth. Well, let's talk some truth. Since 1978, I entered the military in 1974. Okay? I served for 22 years in the military, 2 branches, United States Marine Corps, United States Navy. 1978, our federal government started a program 2 states over from you. It's at the University of Mississippi. And every single month for the last 36 years, the University of Mississippi on the 17th of every month dispenses canisters of marijuana grown by your taxpayer dollars and has been dispensed to, started out with 22 patients. It's now down to 6 because 16 of them have passed away. But every month, those patients receive marijuana grown with your taxpayers' dollars, ratified by every president of the United States since 1978. There and in place. I know the answer to what's going to be said. Oh, Montel, that was an experimental program. So our president and Congress has spent money for 36 years on an experimental program? You can't get them to take care of Medicaid and Medicare? 36 years. Every president ratifies it every year. These patients will receive this until they die. Daniel made a perfect statement. He served us country. He left part of him on the battlefield for you. What right does this country have to say that I can discriminate against who feels better and who doesn't? I'll give these 6 people medication that works and screw the rest of you. How do we do this? But I get it. Montel, you're crazy. Okay. So let's move a little bit. Let's move a little bit further forward. That's 1978. This last year, ladies and gentlemen, right now I don't know if a lot of you even understand the fact that our federal government funds marijuana research around the world. In December of this year, it gave its highest award from NIDA. Highest award from NIDA to a doctor by the name of Dr. Meshulam in Israel for the discovery of THC, CBD, and CBN, and his research on its effects on post-traumatic stress syndrome. So we pay for research on cannabis, we distribute cannabis, yet we won't allow patients across the country to have access. But I get it, because somebody's going to say, but Montel, it's contrary to federal law. If we open up dispensaries, the Fed's going to come in here and step on our head. Very interesting. I'd like you all to double check this today. I got a lot of news media here, so you go check it, because I'm going to blow you right out the door right this minute. This year, 9 months ago, after a bill had been before the U.S. Senate and Congress for over 17 years, from the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. They had put a bill in 17 years ago asking for the right to distribute cannabis in the nation's capital. And I don't know if you understand this, that the District of Columbia is not a state, so therefore all its laws must be ratified by the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress. This past year, the U.S. Senate and U.S. Congress allowed the District of Columbia to set up grow facilities and dispensaries in the nation's capital. And then they went one step further. They issued licenses in the nation's capital to 2 people for grow facilities, and they have not issued a license yet for dispensaries. I received the first license from the United States Congress and Senate to distribute medical cannabis, to grow it in the nation's capital, in Montel Williams' name. Now wait a minute. Well, what does that mean for Arkansas? That means that I'm going to be able to grow marijuana to give to our Congress and senators' children in the district, and you can't have it here in your state. There's a bill that's before you. It's Prop 5. Proposition 5, I believe, and I've worked on legislation in 11 of the 17 states and the District of Columbia that have passed medical cannabis laws since 2001. This bill, as it's written, is probably one of the most comprehensive and well thought out that I've seen in the other states that I've worked with. Are there holes? Yeah. Are there things that you can do as a state once you pass the bill? Yes. Are there administrative procedures you can put into place to squash any and every fear? Yes. But here's the bottom line. We have been in a war against drugs in America for 30 years. One that we have sadly lost. And right now we have an opportunity to do something that we hear about in the wars in Afghanistan, the wars in Iraq, what's going on in Libya, what's going on in Egypt. We hear this term thrown around all the time. It's called collateral damage. Collateral damage means the victims, the injured, the sick, those who have been wounded. The war on drugs has collateral damage on the streets of Arkansas, streets of America. The collateral damage is Emily, it's Daniel, Melissa's son, it's Montel Williams, it's all those other people here who suffer from a malady that all the drugs that you've been given don't work. So if the doctor decides to then change that medication for you to find something that's going to work, and I'm going to tell you this, Daniel, right now. I hope marijuana works for you. It may not. And if it doesn't, then I hope your doctor takes you off it. But why not give a doctor the right to make that decision? How dare you step up and say, I don't want a doctor to prescribe this, yet you will allow a doctor to put a couple forms of chemotherapy in your family member's body that they know will eradicate the cancer today and cost 4 more 3 years from now. Burn them inside out. That's okay. You got a man up here whose stomach is not going to work anymore. You have children across, people in this entire state who marijuana may not work. It's only going to work for probably 33% of the population, just like every other drug that pharma creates. But again, are we not supposed to be a nation of compassionate people? I've heard that this has turned into some sort of a moral issue, some sort of a religious issue. Well, I don't know. Every religion on this planet, I was born and raised Roman Catholic, I was a Christian, and now I practice Catholicism myself. And every single religion on this planet has one basic tenet, that when you die, you will be judged by how you treat the least of us. Amen. Well, let me tell you something. The least of us are hurting. The least of us need relief. And the least of us need your compassion. I'm going to tell you something. Today, this is the first state I've been to doing advocacy on this issue where on a blog, someone suggested that one of these clergy members here walk up and perform a citizen's arrest on me. I'll show you the blog myself. They asked that someone perform a citizen's arrest on me because Montel Williams has probably gotten cannabis here in the state of Arkansas. So arrest him, and you can prove your point. I saw it on the blog. Well, you know what? You won. This is the first time in about 100 days that I've been in this much pain because I haven't been able to use my medication for the last 2 days getting here. Thanks. This is how you want to treat everybody else in your own state? You can treat me that way. I don't live here. Don't treat your citizens this way. Thank you. I've done this all over the country. No one ever. I've done this all over the country. I've done this all over the country, and no one ever threatened to try to have me citizen arrested by clergy. I wonder what God would say about that.